What if your small startup could go big with almost no money?
Sounds like a dream, doesn't it? But it's possible. That's what bootstrapping is all about.
Exactly. It's all about growing your startup from scratch, fueling it with personal finances and operating revenues, and forgoing outside investment. It's like starting a journey to the moon with just a backpack of supplies.
Isn't that risky, given the high failure rates of startups?
It's definitely challenging, Clarissa, but it's not without its merits. Let's take MailChimp, for instance. It's an email marketing service that began as a side project. It has never taken any outside funding and is now valued at over $4.2 billion.
Indeed. GoPro, the popular action camera brand, was self-funded by Nick Woodman, who initially sold bead and shell belts from his VW van. The company now has revenues over $1 billion. And we must not forget TechSmith, the software company behind screen capture tool Snagit and video editing software Camtasia, which began with an initial investment of just $2,000.
Clarissa, you have made an intriguing point about GoPro and TechSmith. How do you think bootstrapping gave them an edge over other startups seeking venture capital?
Great question, Abigail. It certainly stands to reason that bootstrapping might seem risky or limiting, given the need for immediate cash flow and profit. However, it actually offers several advantages over venture capital funding.
Could you explain more?
Absolutely. Firstly, bootstrapping instills resilience. Just like navigating through the maze of a new location, surviving in business market with own power is tough. When you bootstrap, you're forced to figure things out and make everything work with what you have. As a result, the startups become resilient and better equipped to survive future obstacles.
I haven't considered that angle before. Resilience seems absolutely vital in such a volatile environment.
Indeed, and beyond resilience, bootstrapping also fosters creativity. Limited resources often demand innovative solutions. I can't help but compare it with my transition from Puerto Rico to New York. I had to figure things out and adapt quickly, which fostered creativity and resourcefulness.
That's a great way to put it. Bootstrapping really does enforce a type of innovative thinking. What about independence? Can you shed some light on that?
Sure, that's arguably the most significant advantage. Unlike venture-backed startups, bootstrapped startups maintain full control and ownership of their company. There's more flexibility and freedom to pivot the business direction without having to answer to investors. Going back to my journey example, it's like choosing your own path rather than following a guide.
Those are indeed some compelling reasons to bootstrap, Clarissa. It sounds like a tough yet worthwhile journey, combining elements of resilience, creativity, and independence together for the success of a startup. It feels like a true testament to entrepreneurial spirit.
Abigail, it's interesting to see the common misconceptions surrounding bootstrapping, don't you think?
Absolutely, Clarissa. Misinformation can deter startups from even considering bootstrapping, which is a shame.
One of the huge misconceptions out there is that bootstrapping restricts growth due to limited finances. Yet, what many often overlook is that this very constraint often forces startups to adopt innovative, cost-effective methods to achieve their business objectives.
So in other words, it's not how much resources you have, but how efficiently you use them. That's fascinating. Can you give us an example?
Absolutely. Many tend to believe that the lack of substantial funding hinders the hiring of top-tier talent, thereby limiting growth. While this may seem true, look at startups like Bootstrapped, for example. They've been able to attract exceptional talent simply by offering greater autonomy, learning opportunities, and equity stakes rather than massive paychecks.
That's really some out-of-the-box thinking there. Another common myth I've heard is that bootstrapping equates to a slower-paced growth strategy. But as we can see, with the right strategies and approach, even bootstrapped startups can achieve rapid growth.
Exactly, Abigail. Bootstrapping certainly is a challenging journey, but it is far from restrictive. It requires a shift in mindset. Being open-minded, creative, and resourceful can lead to a plethora of opportunities. It is this very mindset that becomes a startup's saving grace.
Bootstrapping, no doubt, is a tough journey marked with failures. But don't you think, Clarissa, that these failures actually teach entrepreneurs a lot more in the long run?
I couldn't agree more, Abigail. The whole process of bootstrapping equips entrepreneurs with a unique resilience. Navigating a startup through its early stages, amidst constraints, is much like preparing for a marathon. You're apt to trip and fall, but each stumble actually strengthens you, girding you for the long road ahead.
But isn't there a fear factor involved? I mean, as a tech professional, I often find myself scared of not achieving the desired outcome. How does one manage that in a bootstrapping scenario?
Fear is a natural feeling, Abigail. In fact, a scenario where stakes are high and resources are limited, fear of failure can be overwhelming. But that can also be your biggest motivator. Just like how fear of loneliness made me more resilient during my transition from Puerto Rico to New York, fear of failure can drive entrepreneurs to constantly refine and perfect their startup strategies.
True, success tastes even sweeter when it's hard-earned. After all, the joy of reaching the top of a rock climb is all the more exhilarating because of the hard climb that preceded it. Similarly, the sense of achievement for an entrepreneur who bootstraps their way to success, I can only imagine, would be immense.
Absolutely, Abigail. And what stands out in this journey is the enduring nature of this success. Unlike a string of lucky breaks, this success is built brick by brick, with the entrepreneur's sweat and tears. It's the kind of success that withstands the test of time because it's backed by rock-solid foundation.
Just like scaling a steep, rocky cliff on a climb, managing resources in bootstrapping is about being strategic and balanced.
Absolutely. It's not just about having talent or potential, but also how efficiently you deploy and manage them. So, where should startups begin, Abigail?
Firstly, a startup must inventory their resources, not just the tangible assets and cash, but also intangible ones like knowledge, skills, networks. Every resource in a startup can be pushed to add value. Resource management isn't just ratios and spreadsheets either, you know. It's intensely strategic. You need to understand the direction of your startup and prioritize resources to support that direction. It's a constant balancing act between what the company needs immediately versus long-term.
So, essentially, it's about optimizing the available resources to drive maximum value?
Exactly. And to do this, entrepreneurs must not just be managers but also leaders. They need to inspire and guide the team in the right direction. Only then can limited resources be stretched efficiently to achieve growth.
What about scenarios where the resources are extremely limited? How do you prioritize then?
It's a bit like climbing, Clarissa. You know how you run out of energy when you're scaling a difficult cliff, and you have to pick your path carefully. You prioritize. You plot the safest and most efficient route that gets you to the top, balancing risk and reward. Same concept. Clarissa, I once read a quote that startups should treat each dollar as if it was their last.
That is so true. In fact, it's just like how I keep a tight financial discipline personally, such as dedicating certain amount of my salary for my painting supplies, apart from my day job expenses. Similarly, startups, especially bootstrapping ones, have to balance their cash strings, maintaining discipline and squeezing out every bit of utility from their finances.
It goes beyond cash, doesn't it, Clarissa? Even resource allocation is key. I mean, startups need to decide which areas require the most immediate allocation, right?
Definitely, Abigail. Running a startup is not just about pumping money into things. It's about time management, ensuring the team is engaged effectively, and every cog of this machine is working optimally. Even for a dental clinic, every minute saved could mean another patient serviced, and hence, extra revenue.
You know what, from our discussion, I reckon effectively managing resources isn't about having a huge pile of cash. It's about learning to make do with whatever you've got, being more creative and implementing sustainable practices.
So, what you're saying is, being cash-rich does not necessarily equate to efficient resource management.
Exactly. Flush with cash or not, the key is in optimizing available resources, managing them strategically and being nimble in their allocation. Like your hobby, it's about balancing between preserving the resources and spending them for growth. In terms of managing scarce resources, I often think of bootstrapped tech startups as MacGyvers. They're resourceful, innovative, they make do with what they've got. Take GitHub, for example, the largest host of source code in the world, and yet it remained bootstrapped for over 4 years before receiving any external funding.
That's an interesting perspective. In dental clinics, too, being resourceful plays a key role. Saving on costs while maintaining the quality and efficiency of service is a challenge. Many clinic owners often negotiate with dental supplies distributors for best prices. They buy in bulk at discounted rates and manage staff effectively to avoid unnecessary overheads.
Absolutely. Cost management is as much important as time and talent management. Speaking of tools, there are a bunch out there that can really invest startups with superpowers. For instance, platforms like Stripe for payment processing, QuickBooks for accounting, and Slack for team communication are not only cost-effective but also save immense time. Plus, they adapt as the organization grows, lending scalability.
Right. Similar tools in dental clinics would be systems to manage patient records electronically, saving on physical storage and streamlining operations. Some clinics opt for dental software that offers comprehensive features like appointment scheduling, billing, prescriptions, and inventory management, all under one roof.
Scalability seems to be another concept that overlaps with resource management. After all, effectively managed resources not only carry startups through the initial stages, but also prepare them for future growth. Startups can't predict the future, but they can certainly prepare for it. So, bootstrapping is not just about stretching out finances, isn't it, Clarisa?
Absolutely, Abigail. It's about embracing the beauty in the struggle, too. It's about, let's say, learning to wear multiple hats. Entrepreneurs often find themselves navigating through various roles, being the CEO one moment and the janitor the next.
Right, remember Spanx? Sarah Blakely had to do everything herself, from sales and marketing to legal work. The pressure of doing it all can be overwhelming, but those nascent days of multitasking really set the stage for bigger things.
And along with that comes the financial tension. Every penny matters when you're bootstrapping. Remember, a bootstrap startup is like a marathon runner, and the finish line is profitability.
That's such a compelling way to look at it, Clarisa. The pressure to become profitable, and that too soon, can be stressful indeed. But we have countless stories of startups that successfully charted those choppy waters.
Take MailChimp, for instance. Surviving the dot-com bubble, they focused on small businesses, which was a relatively untouched market. Today, they're a billion-dollar entity, still 100% founder-owned. That's the power of bootstrapping.
It goes to show, Clarisa, that the challenges in bootstrapping are not hurdles, but stepping stones that lead startups to ultimate success.
Taking a page out of my book, Abigail, when I first transitioned from Puerto Rico to New York, I faced linguistic bullying. But instead of letting it demotivate me, I worked on my language skills, eventually becoming better at communicating. Startups, too, face challenges during the bootstrapping phase. It's how they convert those challenges into stepping stones that decides their future progress.
That's a very inspiring perspective, Clarisa. And it brings us to our next point, strategic planning. You see, just like you worked on your language skills, startups must plan meticulously. This includes identification of key resources and capabilities, market analysis, feasibility study, and formulating a value proposition that appeals to the target market.
Another aspect that comes to mind is predictive analysis. For instance, a startup could use predictive analysis to forecast product demand, allowing them to streamline their production and prevent wastage of resources. What do you think about this, Abigail?
It's definitely a crucial aspect, Clarisa. Predictive analysis can also assist startups in managing the financial pressure we talked about earlier. And then there's another tool that startups can utilize: reskilling. By training employees in multiple domains, startups not only make the most of their existing resources, but also prepare themselves for unforeseen contingencies.
And just like how my linguistic abilities shape me into a stronger individual, overcoming challenges could make bootstrapped startups more resilient. They might feel the strain in the initial stages, but the end result is a stronger, self-sustaining business model.
Speaking of making the most of resources, Let's not forget one invaluable resource, relationships. I've seen this firsthand in the tech ecosystem. Networking can actually put a startup on the fast track. It's not just about skill bartering, but it can lead to other tangible benefits. But how does this apply in dentistry, Clarisa?
Well, just like in any other business, relationships play a crucial role in the dentistry sector too. Think of a supplier who gives you early access to new products, or a patient who refers more customers to your clinic. Aren't these all results of sound industry relationships?
Indeed, industry relationships are kind of like lifelines for a bootstrapped startup. You see, in technology, one startup might need the services of another startup and vice versa. This can lead to a skill bartering scenario, providing immense mutual benefits.
I assume this need for skill exchange might be slightly different in the tech space?
It is. We've got a different playing field, virtual. We have tech startups offering free usage of their products to other startups in exchange for testimonials or bug reports. This skill bartering helps them improve their product while keeping expenses low.
That's quite interesting. Coming back to the dental clinics, I've seen professionals trading services. For instance, a dental clinic owner might offer free oral care to a graphic designer in exchange for designing the clinic's marketing material. It's about recognizing these opportunities and making the most of them.
So the more effectively you can network and build relationships, the more chances you'll have to barter skills, leading to mutual growth. This just goes to show that bootstrapping is not limited to cash or physical resources. It's also about leveraging relationships.
Absolutely. You nailed it, Abigail.
So in the vein of leveraging relationships, many people underestimate the role of mentors and advisors in a startup's journey. Have you found this to be the case, Clarisa?
Absolutely, Abigail. I've found that having experienced mentors and advisors provides not only a wealth of knowledge in their particular industry, but also their perspective and advice can help navigate the complex world of bootstrapping a startup.
Same in tech startups too. Mentors can offer guidance and debunk some bootstrapping myths for startups. They've often been through the ringer themselves and can help guide new businesses around pitfalls. It's like having a guide while traveling through uncharted territory.
Exactly. It's also important to remember that in the realm of personal relationships, partnerships can play a crucial role in bootstrapping. For example, in setting up a dental clinic, partnerships with suppliers for dental equipment, or even other dental offices to refer patients can greatly help to bootstrap the business.
Wow, that mirrors tech startups in many ways. Partnerships can offer a bootstrapped startup better visibility in the market, can increase their customer base, and can bring in more monetary resources at the same time. It's like having a strong ally in your corner.
Definitely. The backbone of bootstrapping lies in partnership building and leveraging relationships. It's about recognizing the value of relationships and the personal connections we have. It's these relationships that often provide the most important resources for a bootstrapped startup.
Whether you're in tech or dentistry, building strong business relationships can not only help startups to thrive, but can also provide an invaluable support network while navigating the ups and downs of bootstrapping. So, nurturing these connections should be a top priority. Clarisa, we touched on effective resource management, now shifting focus to maximizing growth with limited funds. Have you found implementing lean principles beneficial in scaling your dental clinics?
Absolutely, Abigail. Implementing lean principles aids in optimizing cost efficiencies. For instance, reusing our dental tools once sterilized and purchasing supplies in bulk considerably cut down costs in my dental clinic. It's about doing more with less and making every dollar count. Wouldn't you agree?
I do. Tech startups pursue a similar mindset. The implementation of lean principles can mean coding smarter, not harder, building scalable infrastructure and following methodologies like Agile and Lean Startup that can help maximize productivity with minimal resources. There is also software that helps automate mundane tasks, freeing up valuable resources.
That's a fascinating angle. Even in dental clinics, automation in appointments and billing process not only reduces cost but also improves efficiency. And at the end of the day, it's all about innovative problem solving, right?
Definitely, creativity and innovation are the bedrocks of any thriving bootstrap startup. I think another critical area we need to discuss is digital platforms. They offer cost-effective ways to connect with customers, market products, and even conduct business operations. What has been your experience with these platforms, Clarisa?
Digital platforms have been a game changer for me, Abigail. Our dental clinic now leverages social media for targeted advertising and patient communication. Even conducting webinars on oral hygiene extends our reach to potential customers without additional financial strain. This also helps us position ourselves as thought leaders in our region's dental scene.
Great point, Clarisa. Digital campaigns can produce startlingly high ROI when executed correctly. It allows bootstrapped startups to compete with large companies that have deeper marketing budgets. Is there anything else you'd like to mention?
I think it's crucial to remind our listeners that while these strategies can help maximize growth, the goal should always be sustainable and steady growth, not just rapid expansion at all costs. Keep weighing your options, measuring your progress, and making strategic course corrections as needed. Bootstrapping may be challenging, but with the right approach, it can enable startups to accomplish big things with limited resources.
So, beyond cost-saving measures, innovative problem-solving, and leveraging digital spaces, there's another key element to maximize growth: organic growth tactics.
Absolutely, Abigail. And for our listeners, organic growth essentially means growing your business through internal cash flow. That means not relying heavily on external financing or capital injections.
Indeed, it's about nurturing and growing the business from within.
To illustrate, MailChimp, a wildly successful marketing automation platform, was a bootstrapped startup. They focused on building relationships with customers and providing them value, and slowly earned their trust and loyalty.
Slow and steady, as they say. But it's an approach that has seen them become a multi-million-dollar company today. And it's not just about money, it's about building a solid, scalable business.
And the interesting thing here is, MailChimp almost went under in their early years, but they stuck to their guns, didn't rush the process, and gradually became a self-sustaining entity. A living and breathing testament to the power of bootstrapping.
Another noteworthy case would be TechSmith, creators of Snagit and Camtasia. They bootstrapped their way into becoming a leading software development company. They attribute their growth to an unrelenting focus on customers and commitment to innovation.
It's incredible to see how they achieved noteworthy growth with minimal funds. And it underlines the power of strategic bootstrapping.
And while we are reflecting on these stories, there's a key element that can't be overstated: the necessity to measure and track growth meticulously.
Oh, absolutely. You can't manage what you don't measure. From setting baseline KPIs to tracking progress over time, constant evaluation is crucial, especially with bootstrapping, where every decision can have a significant impact.
Transitioning from a bootstrapping phase to becoming a self-sustaining business, it's a pivotal moment that requires thoughtful decisions. I've seen startups falter at this stage because scaling isn't just growing. It involves refining the business model, ensuring it's self-sustaining.
Yes, and it isn't about rushing into it either. Much like TechSmith and MailChimp, they stuck to their initial drive, didn't rush the process, or give in to temptations of external funding. Instead, they managed to reach a stage of self-sustainability organically by harnessing the power of bootstrapping.
I believe thorough preparation is crucial before deciding to scale. For example, have you built a scalable business model? Can you maintain your brand and value as you grow?
From the perspective of a dental clinic, I feel preparing for scale also means being ready to manage an increasing workload, expanding services, and even hiring more staff without losing the essence of what made you unique in the first place. Is that something similar in the tech startup world, Abigail?
Certainly. Tech startups often need to scale their technology to handle more users, automate processes, or even leverage machine learning for intelligence. Any thought about preparing startups for investor attraction?
I think it comes naturally after proving one's self-sustainability. Investors are attracted to startups demonstrating high growth potential and economic viability without relying heavily on external capital.
So self-sustainability may indeed be one of the charms of a bootstrapped startup attracting investors, alongside a sturdy value proposition and a proven track record. It's quite a thought to ponder.
It is. Bootstrapping certainly shapes a resilient, inventive, and self-reliant entity, ready to tackle future challenges.
Despite gearing up for growth, Self-sustaining businesses might still hit some roadblocks. Clarissa, can you think of any key factors that could hinder their progress?
Certainly, Abigail. Scale doesn't necessarily mean success. Just like how a dental clinic can't simply add more chairs and expect the profits to triple. Your back-end operations might not have scaled at the same pace. Delivery quality could falter. Costs might go up unexpectedly.
Precisely, you nailed it, Clarissa. It's like trying to fit massive influx of data into a server that isn't equipped to handle it. It needs meticulous preparation and management. What do you think startups can do to navigate such scenarios?
Acknowledging the challenges is a good start. But more importantly, businesses need to stay agile and upgrade their operational efficiency as they grow. This includes processes, tools, and most importantly, their human resource. After all, a scaling business will only be as good as the team running it.
That does sound like an effective strategy. We discussed earlier how bootstrapping startups have a unique advantage of being self-reliant and resilient. In this context, they are more likely to bounce back in the face of these challenges.
Absolutely, Abigail. Much like how personal adversities build resilient individuals, bootstrapping adversities build resilient businesses. Can we draw parallels with our personas here, you think?
We usually can, Clarissa. Bootstrapping bears similarities to my experience at work. Ensuring a clean code, managing resources, optimizing in essence, resulting in growth. But it's not without the challenge of fears, like fear of professional failure that I constantly face. Overcoming such fears is unavoidably part of this journey.
You're spot on, Abigail. It's remarkably similar to my journey. Much like bootstrapped businesses, I faced challenges when transitioning from Puerto Rico to New York. I had linguistic hurdles to cross and insecurities to conquer. Just like a startup faces financial hurdles, scalability issues, and other obstacles. But I overcame them, and so can these businesses.